Back from my trip to Tampa with a knapsack full of retro goodies. These are my game pickups for the week, and it starts now. Around the world, many people who collect retro video games either have it easy or they have to drive several miles to complete their collection. For me, I have a couple of stores in the vicinity, with the closest one being 45 minutes away. And what I have noticed, a common theme with all these, is that they're limited selection and overpriced. Tampa, Florida is a retro video game store lover's paradise, with stores around the corner from each other and tons of selection. It was tough for me to not grab everything I see. But let's be real, I do have bills after all, and it'd be hard to keep the lights on if I did something like that. Oh no. Probably a fuse. Yeah, fuse. I'll be right back. Sorry for the technical difficulties. Up and running now. Before we go any further, I post retro game reviews, gameplay, and unboxing videos weekly, so be sure to subscribe to that. And while you're here, give this video a big old thumbs up. Time to get to it. So grab yourself a comfy chair, maybe a cold one, and prepare to take a journey with me into our retro gaming past. Start this video with a Capcom arcade classic. Final Fight is the kind of game ported to the home console that kids from the 90s dreamed of. The gameplay and graphics made losing tons of quarters to a machine a thing of the past. The plot follows newly elected mayor and former pro wrestling star Mike Hager in his task to keep streets clean of gang activity and to rescue his kidnapped daughter from the worst gang of them all, the Mad Gears. The wrestling champ of the world can't do it alone, though. Supporting cast includes future son-in-law Cody Travers and ninja in training and good friend of Cody named Guy. Yep, just Guy. All in all, this is a great beat-em-up and a clear classic retro game that I'll be happy to add to my collection. Zooming down busy streets, racing on a bike, while avoiding obstacles and beating the living crap out of my opponents is how I spent a lot of my childhood. Nothing compares to the gratification of knocking an opponent into oncoming traffic. With a variety of weapons to choose from and customizable bike upgrades, this game was addictive and most definitely deserves a spot on my game shelf. Kid Chameleon, a game about an arcade game so realistic, the final boss escaped and claimed its victims by beating them in the game, makes this list for being a unique side-scrolling platformer. Your character won't go down without a fight and seems to be humanity's only hope. Throughout the game, you get power-ups that transform you into different character styles that are critical to succeed in the game. One stage, you could be playing as a ninja, where another has you taking down enemies as a knight. Great concept, challenging at times, and a delightful change of pace over many similar style titles. This isn't a title that I owned as a kid, but one I wish I knew about before today. Tiny Toons, a Konami game that many didn't play because of its kid-like theme, but those same people changed their minds later when they revisited this hidden gem. Tiny Toons Buster's Hidden Treasure is a fast-paced, fun side-scroller that is very reminiscent of the Sonic game in its style and gameplay. The only difference is you're collecting carrots instead of coins. Your task is to rescue Babs and recover the hidden treasure stolen by Montana Max. Through the story, you'll find different portals that take you to Wacky Land, special land that's in a form of a bonus level. This game is a blast to play, and I'm not afraid to admit it. The 16-bit version of a classic Atari 2600 title by the same name, Pitfall, the Mayan adventures, stunning visuals, and smooth gameplay makes this a must-own for the Sega Genesis. They took the mechanics of Aladdin and Lion King and turned the dial up to create this action platform. The player takes control of Pitfall Harry Jr. across multiple stages set in the Mayan jungles of Central America to defeat an evil Mayan warrior spirit. Top of my list of replay ability some 26 years later. Wow, I'm old. Night Trap, a controversial game that almost ended future game development in the 90s. Night Trap started development as a VHS-based game where the player cycles through different security cameras to prevent a group of ninjas from raiding a house. The game went through many changes and witnessed the project dropped before attracting the eye of Sega, who was searching for a new game to showcase their Sega CD add-on. Instead of ninjas, however, we got old decrepit vampires that were in need of a special device to get their nutrients for the day. The year was 1993, and shortly after the release, a war broke out between the gaming industry and people blaming video games for the increasing amount of violence among youths.
Instead of enriching a child's mind, these games teach a child to enjoy inflicting torture.
Scenes from Night Trap and Mortal Kombat were used to showcase and outrage the Karens of the world. But after deliberation, instead of denying creative liberties and robbing us of future video games like Grand Theft Auto, a new game rating system was put into place. Now, a parent can decide whether or not to buy a game with a mature rating is good parenting. Valiant effort, but I'm not sure people even look before they buy.
There was a graphic depiction of the violence against women.
Mortal Kombat and Night Trap are not the kind of gifts that responsible parents give.
A Disney game published by Capcom, Bonkers is a feel-good slapstick comedy Super Nintendo game featuring the title character, retired movie star, Bonkers taking his new role as Officer of the Law. Yet another game that took notes from the Sonic franchise, Bonkers is a high-speed thrill ride of a game with a hint of Saturday morning cartoons. The animation given to every hit is a welcome touch. This is easily has my stamp of approval for being a game worth checking out today. The Humans is a puzzle game that puts the player in control of a caveman civilization with the task of trying to discover items critical for future existence and evolution. Each level is timed and progressively gets more challenging. You start with 12 members of your tribe, but you make a mistake, you lose a member. If all 12 perish, it's game over. I enjoyed the gameplay on this, but found myself stuck early on. The concept is very unique and a decent pickup in my opinion. One of my favorite puzzle games from the past that was overran with a Tetris fever, a craze for best puzzle game ever created. You play either a second player or the computer trying to line color bombs up with colored little animals similar to Dr. Mario with the pills. First one to clear the little creatures wins. Many hours were spent mastering the different movements in a race against time and a closing ceiling based on the other player's gameplay. If either side has a large line eliminated in one shot, the other has to deal with a rain shower of new problems. Iconic game for me and my collection, and something that will be played often. Who wouldn't want to play an open world styled Spider-Man game in the N64 era? Well, somewhat open world. Spider-Man for the Nintendo 64 follows the comic theme of the Amazing Spider-Man with the added touch of featuring each level with its own unique comic title screen. A couple of months ago, I scored the same game for $30. Well, I thought I did. Turns out it was just a box and a manual. But that's the going rate for those, so getting this game was important to me, so I picked it up. You progress through levels facing the worst the city has to offer and end with a double boss battle against Doc Ock and Carnage for a climactic finish. Great N64 game, but that isn't the only reason I'm adding it to my collection. This game is part of a mass hysteria known as the Mandela effect. It's a perfect example of it. If you don't know what the Mandela effect is, it is a distinct memory of something being different than it was in the past. Like, it's changed. Google it if you get a minute. It will scare you, some of the things that are on there. It'll make you question everything. But what surrounds the N64 game for Spider-Man is the lack of Spider-Man on the cartridge. You see, a lot of people remember Spider-Man climbing up the wall on the cartridge. I mean, it's on the box art the same way. Maybe that's the reason why. Who knows? But what do you think? What do you remember from being a kid? Do you remember Spider-Man being on the wall? Let me know in the comments. Speaking of the Mandela effect, is it Flintstones or Flintstones? What do you remember? Is there a T in there or no T? I could talk for hours about the Mandela effect, but we'll save that for another video. Let's move on. Hey, mister, I think you dropped something. A vastly underrated platformer for the Nintendo Entertainment System. The Flintstones Rescue of Dino and Hoppy has you playing as Fred scrambling around to find pieces of a broken time machine to rescue Barney and Fred's dino companions from wherever they were sent back in time. They have been kidnapped by a doctor from the 30th century, and you are their only hope. The gameplay and graphics are fantastic for an 8-bit game, and is sure to be the kind of game that is hard to put down. Here comes the airplane. Whee! Oh, Battletoads. This is probably where many of us learned to cuss for the first time. Who can forget the iconic tunnel level and the nearly impossible glider segment? The 2-player option was nearly unplayable, but I remember giving it my best whenever I had friends over, only to be at their throat for bumping me and getting rid of my last life. Challenging and not forgiving gameplay, but a classic nonetheless, and a critical piece to any retro game library. I must say, I played this again for the first time in years, and after many, many attempts of holding myself back from throwing the game across the room, I was able to master the tunnel and gave up after several deaths in the glider scene.